The GoPro Hero 9 Black so far has been pretty impressive.
Keep thinking that I could have done something, but now I'm left with an empty heart. No making amends, no waking up beside you.
The 2.7K 120 frames per you know what I'm going to say. The slow motion option here on the GoPro Hero 7 is absolutely amazing. Timewarp 3.0, that's great too. And the big game changer here, you have no idea how good it is this horizon leveling voodoo, which keeps the camera incredibly straight with the horizon. It's insane. Then the GoPro Hero 9 Black also does photos. And then there's the stabilization, Hypersmooth 3.0, and it's incredibly stable. And then there's the simple fact of this incredible looking 5K video, all stabilized. And you know what? All that stuff is great, but 5K video, amazing looking photos, perfect slow-mo. When it comes to these kinds of things, they're useless unless you know the settings and how to use them in the GoPro Hero 9 Black. And this video is going to show you how to master the settings, including the video settings in the GoPro Hero 9 Black. Let's go. First up, when it comes to the GoPro Hero 9 Black, like other GoPros, if you swipe up, down, left or right, you're going to get different modes. So if we swipe to the left, we can get the mode button equivalent, or we can just press it and go from photo to time lapse to video. And of course, each one of these will have different options. If we swipe down, we get a bunch of preferences. And if we swipe to the right, we get more preferences and connections. And then if we swipe up, we're going to get what is on our SD card inside in the GoPro. And now let's get into the preferences themselves. Then we'll get to the shooting stuff, particularly around video. So let's swipe down first off. We can have voice commands. We can have these on or off. I would suggest having them off simply because it's going to save you battery. And it's all about saving battery. Regardless if it's a bigger battery, it's about saving battery. So turn voice commands off unless you really need them. These are the beeps. These are the GoPro beeps, which can be loud and annoying, but we can change the volume of those. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But maybe turn them on or turn them off, up to you. This is called quick capture. Now what quick capture allows you to do is just keep the record button pressed, and then the GoPro will automatically power on once it's off and it'll start recording instantly. So for me, I'm going to leave it off. Screen lock allows us to lock the screen or not. So basically you can't touch anything on the screen, it won't respond. Then we can have our grid. So for composition, this can be handy. Next one up is the actual front screen options. So front screen being this screen right here. So we have a couple of different options here on this and the GoPro Hero 9. We have status only, which shows us just a status, and this will flash recording. If we press record, it's going to show us what we have recorded. Let's go back to our menus here. This is the other option here on the screen. So you can have the actual screen. So this is going to show you the full video that you're capturing. Alternatively, you have full screen, which is just going to use the whole screen and only use a part of the actual screen itself. So up to you, or you can just turn it off. Once you're good to go, hit the tick box. Next up is orientation. So when you rotate the GoPro, it's going to orient differently. So you can have it for up or all. I generally tend to leave it on all. And then if you've got the max lens mod, you can turn it on here. And you have to have this on for the camera to work properly with it. So in this case, I don't. So I'm going to swipe down and I'm going to turn it off. Let's go down again and let's jump across here. So we have connections. So you have wireless connections on or off. If you want to connect the GoPro to your phone, you need this on. You can connect the device. It's going to push you to the GoPro app on your phone. So there's an interesting one here on the USB connection. So do you want to download footage directly from the SD card inside in the GoPro? It needs to be on MTP. Alternatively, if you want to use your GoPro as a streaming device, and we have another video of that at another time, then you got to leave it on GoPro Connect. We got camera info, we got Wi-Fi band, which is 5 gigahertz or 2.4. And then we can reset all the connections, which in this case, we're not going to do. So that's the connections, and then more preferences here. What we've got is general. So the beep volume, is it low? Is it medium? Or is it high? Yeah. I'd leave it on low personally because it will blow your eardrums, okay? Next one is the quick capture, which we spoke about. Then the default preset. So whenever you turn on the GoPro, we'll say in video mode, what's the default preset it's going to go to? So we can look at presets here. Was the last used video, last used photo, and so on. So whatever you find yourself using most, in my case, is going to be last used video. I'm just going to leave it on that. Our auto power off is simple. When the camera shuts off, if you do nothing, it's going to auto power off after 15 minutes. The LEDs, we have a couple of options here, all on, all off, or we can turn off the front LEDs only. Then our anti-flicker, depending on where you're shooting and what kind of lights, you might be able to change this to 50 Hertz or 60 Hertz. And then our video compression. So we have HEVC, which is a pretty intense codec to work with, but it's going to give you really good quality. Or we can have H.264 and HEVC. Keep in mind on the higher frame rate stuff, especially stuff around 5K and higher resolution, you are going to be pushed into using HEVC. Now there is a fix for all of that kind of stuff if your computer can't handle it, but I'll get to that in another video. Then we got our time and our date, and here's a quick tip. You don't have to set the time and date once you connect it to your GoPro app on your phone. It will automatically set the time and date, which is useful. It'll save you seconds. We've got our date format, and that's kind of that on the preferences. Now, video settings. So there's a couple of things that are happening here, all right? Now, there's a lot of options, but they are simple. So bear with me and hold tough and don't freak out. And if you do get stuck, pause the video and go back. Or if you do get completely stuck, drop me a comment and I'll try and help you out. Once you're in video mode, your screen might look like this. So in my case here, we've got a couple of different options, including presets. Presets are going to save you a ton of time, and the GoPro Hero 9 Black comes with a bunch of them by default. So I'm going to press the preset here. So forget the custom one, I've made that one, but we can see cinematic, standard, activity, and slow-mo. Now, to make your own preset or to edit the existing ones, all you got to do to edit is select the pencil icon, and then we can see a resolution, the lens that we want to use, boost, whether it's on hyper smooth, schedule capture, duration, hindsight, which allows you to kind of buffer the camera and it'll record up to the last 30 seconds when you hit record, so you kind of never miss the shot. Then you got a timer and you got a zoom, and Protune, essentially what Protune allows you to do is tune the camera a little bit better. So you can have higher bit rate or you can have standard bit rate. I'd suggest keeping it on high. We have auto shutter, we can go 130, we can go 1 up to 480, we can do lots of different things. If you're shooting cinematic stuff like 1/50, you're probably going to need an ND filter. So in a lot of cases, you're probably going to get away with a GoPro by using auto, unless you get an ND filter. Our ISO minimum and maximum. So this is the ISO, basically how bright the camera will go, especially in low light situations. So the ISO minimum should always be at 100. I find ISO max no more than 400. So you can just tap it. And we can go up to 6400, which is not really usable because the higher the ISO on the GoPro, the more noise it's going to pull in. And keep in mind, this is a small camera, it's very powerful, but it's a tiny sensor. So low light and GoPros, no. So maximum 400. Sharpness, GoPro's really over sharpening. This is digital sharpening. You can sharpen in post-production, which is the best way to do it. So you can tap here and we can have it high, which you don't want to do. And a lot of these presets are by default having it high. So you can have medium or low. Medium is kind of a happy medium. And then onto color. So we can have flat or we can have GoPro color. So GoPro color is very bright, very vibrant, very saturated. Flat gives you a little bit of room in post-production to kind of grade your footage. So whatever works for you, try both of them out. Then we have raw audio. It'll record standard audio without a raw audio track. We can have raw audio low, all the way up to high, so it creates a raw audio track with full processing. I tend to leave this one on, off. Wind reduction helps with wind reduction, but depending on what you're doing, you might want to have it off. or maybe you want to have it on. Entirely up to you. I tend to leave the GoPro on auto for this one. Media mod is going to give you options there if you got the media mod attached, but GoPro doesn't seem to have any of them, so yeah. And then our shortcuts. So here's a really useful thing, the shortcuts. These are all going to be laid out on the screen when you're shooting, and you can change them to whatever you want. So I've got lower left lens, lower right hindsight, upper left slow-mo, upper right hypersmooth. So let's say we tap the lower lens, and we have a whole bunch of different options that we can do here. And these, whatever you select, is going to appear on that slot. In this case, it's the lower left. So I'm going to bring this one down to scheduled capture. And then once you're good to go, press that one again to go back. And then we're in cinematic and we can see the scheduled capture is what I set up, and that's there now as a shortcut. So that's the basics of video. Now that's editing an existing preset. If you want to create a brand new preset, all you got to do is hit an existing preset, scroll down, hit the plus symbol. So we've got video, looping, or slow-mo. So in this case, I'm going to create a video preset. I'm going to tap it. I'm going to press here. And then we've got our options. So what's our resolution in our frames per second? Well, let's go with 5K. Let's go with 24. Let's tap this. And then we've got our lens options here. So we can have a wide lens, linear and horizon level. I really suggest using the horizon leveling. It's amazing. Or we can have a narrow. So in this case, I'm going to use horizon leveling. And then we've hyper smooth on, obviously, because it's just so good. Duration, no limit. Hindsight off, timer off. Leave the zoom alone because it's a digital zoom. I'm going to push the bitrate to high. We leave the shutter in auto. EV comp for exposure compensation. If you want to bring it up or down, you can just tap it. Depending on what you want to do, exposure comp could be really useful, again, depending on the scenario. So if you're doing a lot of footage with GoPros, then you probably know the different type of shooting scenarios that you're going to have in situations. So you might be able to use this one. Or white balance, you can have this as a shortcut possibly if you want. You can leave it on auto. Keep in mind if you're doing time lapses, auto is probably going to screw up at some point. ISO min, ISO max, as we said earlier on, we're going to bring this way down. I'm going to bring this one down to 200. Sharpness, going to bring it down to medium. GoPro color to flat, and so on. So I'm not going to bore you guys with kind of doing the same thing again, but essentially I've created this preset, and then once you're good to go, tap, and then we can give it a name. So I'm just going to call this one Epic. Tap. And then we have this in our preset selection. Now, if this is something that you're going to use all the time, have it on the top. If it's something that you're going to use every now and again, tap this button here, keep it pressed, and then we can drag stuff around if we want. And then if you want to delete, like I'm going to do here, you can delete the preset. So that's presets covered, really like super easy. Now let's jump across to some of the photo modes, and these again are very straightforward. So I think you guys are getting the basics here now for the GoPro. So let's take a look into photo on the GoPro Hero 9 Black. Again, let's press our presets. So we've got photo, we've got live burst, we've got burst or night photo. So night photo is kind of a longish exposure shot. Experiment with it, it's fun. So I'm just going to concentrate on the photo one here. So again, we can create a brand new photo preset by selecting the plus, or we can edit an existing one. So our lens, we've got some lens choices, wide, linear, narrow. So I'm going to leave it on linear. Our output, HDR, super photo basically allows the GoPro to decide on what the output should be. You can have it as a standard JPEG, or you can output it to RAW, which gives you a little bit of flexibility in post-production as well. For me, I kind of like HDR or RAW, so either or. I'm going to leave this one in HDR. Schedule capture, again, if you want to get the GoPro to turn on. Or timer, a zoom, leave the zoom alone. I can't say it enough, leave the zoom alone, it's rubbish, it's digital, forget it. And then we've got our Protune options here as well, so sharpness or white balance. And then we've got those shortcuts. How are you guys doing? All good? Any problems? Hit me up in the comments. So I'm going to do one more, and this is the kind of the time-lapse mode, and there's a couple of different modes in here. Again, let's press our presets, which are so good. So we've got Timewarp, which is kind of a motion lapse when it's moving, and it'll do horizon leveling and all that. Then we've got a time lapse, which is static. And then you've got a night lapse. So we can go into the edit option. We can see our different stuff here, from resolution, the type of lens that we want to use, the speed. So you can leave the GoPro adjust the speed itself, which kind of uses the accelerometer and all the voodoo that it's got to decide on the speed, which is actually pretty useful. And unless you have a specific need to start changing this, I find auto, it's pretty good. Schedule capture duration, and that's kind of time lapse, time warp, or night lapse. So all of these are really, really easy. And you know what? That's the settings on the GoPro Hero 9 Black. That's how to get in there and mess about. And that's what I would say to everybody. Mess about with these settings. Just have a go. I guarantee you will be pulling off amazing footage. Just like that. I'll see you on the next episode of the vlog for some more GoPro Hero 9 videos and all things to do with video, including techniques, tips, and thoughts. Please hit subscribe, which is right around there where this freaky blue light is. Or yeah, and there's another video up here that I think you're going to really like. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, don't stop fighting for yourself. After all that, I really hope I press record. Did I press record? Did I press record?